February 28th, 2016. Call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is discussion and possible action on February 11th, 2016 meeting minutes. Is there any changes or additions?
I will move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and possible action on final plat of Cedar Valley Subdivision 15, one-family lots, Town of Hudson, extraterritorial subdivision review, Kern and Back. Mr. Darnold?
This is the final plat of Cedar Valley, and a month ago we reviewed the preliminary plat. The final plat conforms with the concept plan that was reviewed in 2014 in the preliminary plat. I did note that they did change street names again. I think it's the third time I did talk to the surveyor, said the Town of Hudson's okay with the street names, recommend approval.
Any discussion or questions? So moved. Is there a second?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is discussion, possible action on final development plans. Hudson Boat Works, 7440 square feet, commercial phase 1 improvements and 2 future buildings, 125, 155, and 175 2nd Street. HAF Red LLC. Mr.
At the
Brown?
last Plan Commission meeting, the Plan Commission recommended approval of the final development plans for the Hudson Boat Works with the condition that the exiting access would be limited to left turn only out of the parking lot. Received a call last week. They wanted to have an opportunity to visit with the Plan Commission again before it goes to Common Council. I did not receive any information in regards to what they want to visit with us about, but I guess we turn the floor over to them and let them present what they want to discuss.
Good evening, Ryan Carey, attorney for MLME Holdings, LLC, which is owned in part by Mike Leverty. I'll be speaking on behalf of MLME today. Also in attendance would be Matt Hayfor and Mike Hayfor. As I think you know, this property is a portion of this property is under contract to be sold to an entity controlled by Mr. Mike Hayfor, and he may choose to speak at the end of my comments. Appreciate you having us here today. Requested a second look. Really, in light of the fact that there was this approval for the project, conditioned upon an absolute restriction for left turns out of the subject premises, which would affect not only the new development, but would also impact and affect the employees and clients of Mr. Leverty's business, which is Northwestern Mutual, as well as that of his tenant. Not here to say that there isn't an issue for which some sort of restriction is necessary. Not here to argue that point. I think any of us that travel that area, observe that area, can say that at times traffic certainly does back up at or near this entryway, and so I think some restriction is necessary. But I would submit that the issue, that is when traffic may back up at or near this point from the stoplight at the corner where Dairy Queen is really limited to the latter afternoon hours, predominantly during weekdays, sometimes weekends in the summer months. But I would submit that approximately 22 to 22 and a half hours of each and every day, a left turn out of this property is a complete non-issue. And so therefore the request and why we're here before you today is hopefully to get the Plan Commission to take a second look at a complete and absolute restriction on left turns and instead impose a condition that would, we believe, equally address the potential safety issue of the traffic flow, but also not do so in a manner that would create an unnecessary hardship for the current property owner and the future property owner, assuming that this deal would stay together. And the suggestion would be, respectfully, that there would be a left turn restriction from 4:30 to 6 p.m. every day and that be enforced via signage only. I think that the signage would adequately protect the public interest. I think also the other deterrent that we haven't really, I'm not sure if it was addressed last meeting, I was not here, but is simply the fact that if it is during a busy time and the traffic is backed up, anybody that's ever come out of there would know taking a left turn is pretty much impossible anyway. Common sense should prevail. If it doesn't, hopefully the sign obviously would be enough to get people to follow the rules, so to speak. And so, again, from the current owner's perspective, wanting to work with the city, again, not here to argue whether there's an issue or not, simply asking that we focus on the time frame, which I think we would all agree. I'm not here to speak for you, of course, but that it is limited in terms of the amount of time it actually is a potential problem, and not impose an absolute restriction, and instead look at a focused time frame of 4:30 to 6 p.m., 7 days a week via signage only. Certainly entertain any questions. And
So how many more cars, Mr. Carey, do you believe that'll be in there with at least the first building and then at the third potential building? You know, I know one's a restaurant, and obviously it'll have a lot more volume than maybe the existing business that's in there.
certainly, well, I think that's a fair question that I would ask. I'd have the Haflers speak to on. They're developing that portion of the building. One thing I just wanted to point out before I turn it over to him on the issue of traffic flow. I think we also should recognize that much of this issue has been somewhat impacted by the bridge construction. The maintenance on the Stillwater Bridge has obviously caused more traffic to flow here and cause more backups. That should subside. In terms of the traffic flow, I think we all remember when this was a bank, and there was a lot of traffic flow in and out of there, taking both right and left turns in and out of a drive up a very busy bank at that time when it was open as First Federal out of La Crosse. So I'm not going to say that it's going to be consistent with that. I'll let Mr. Hafler speak to that.
Mayor, Planning Commission, Mike Hafler from Hafe Real Estate and Development Company out of Stillwater. The answer to that, Mayor, is about 25 cars for the Lolo Group. It's about a 75-seat restaurant, and a large amount of the ingress-egress would occur between probably 6 and 8. We're running now over 2-hour turns in Stillwater, so people are staying there to eat. And it's a longer turn than most restaurants. So we'd have about 25 cars there. In addition, our office, we've got 6 to 7 people. We are bringing 5 new Minnesota-based businesses into Wisconsin, along with Lolo being the 6th business. We're concerned more so with the future of the other 2 buildings. I cannot have a restriction that's that heavy if, to take a left turn out if we have a Minnesota-based business that is moving in there, because they're probably going to want to head straight south and pick up 94 from that location. So to put that restriction on the other 2 buildings in the future is not something that is going to work for us. I have spoken to Lolo at length about it, and again, their turns they're long, and they have a lunch crowd. It's pretty busy in Stillwater. We don't anticipate it being much different in Hudson, but that's what I have.
So have you done any kind of traffic study there?
No, we're not traffic study,
No, I mean hired someone to do a traffic study.
no.
I want to make a comment, on the time proposed and, and then effectiveness of signage, 2 issues. I disagree with your hours because it can vary. And so to cover it all, you have to make it a wider span of time, in my opinion. 3:30 to 6, 3:30 to 6:30, something. I mean, I don't know the finite part of that. Number 2, signage shows intent, but is very hard to enforce and very hard to have people do what is intended. And so I think even though, speaking for myself here, we recognize that as a, I'm not gonna call it a dangerous intersection, but one that needs to be watched, that we were looking out, we felt for your best interest also, I mean, without impairing your business, hopefully, to make that work for you. So that, I think, is at least my thinking of what we did prior to here. And there has to be some information presented or something that says, I mean, who's gonna obey don't turn left for 2 hours? I mean, we all, when we were kids, when we were doing that, people look at it and say, look right, look left, oh, nobody's there. Go do it. So don't feel that's real effective. Personal opinion. Want to bring up those two issues.
Okay.
I don't think this issue is unique just to this location. When I was coming back into town tonight about 6:25, somebody was trying to parallel park on Second Street near the Dragon Pearl and Bert's Coffee Shop. So traffic was backed all the way up through the intersection by Walnut and beyond Agave. So I mean, it's not unique just to this particular part of town, and we have it when people are trying to turn left to go into that Walnut parking lot too. So I think we just have to be cautious of what we do. And with all due respect, I do think signage can be helpful. I mean, where it says do not turn on a red, I follow that because it says do not turn on a red. So I mean, I think, you know, is it as impactful as a cement barrier? Probably not. But I think if it looks like I'm never going to get across, I am going to take a right out and go around. I mean, if it looks like I will never get through that and it's not safe for me or people around me, then I would do the go around.
Counter to that, if I may say, is that that's one lane in each direction at that point, and the speed limit is 25 miles an hour. Introducing those two factors, I agree with everything you said under those circumstances. 2 lanes, 25. I have to disagree with you at 45 and 4 lanes.
We did talk about at the last meeting, and I know, Denny, it takes a long time to get an answer from MnDOT about, is there an opportunity to lower the speed limit from 45 in that section? Because if you are going 45, I mean, you can kind of book through there, but, you know, so is that still an option to evaluate? Or how, is that so far out that it's too long?
No, it's not necessarily far out. I think if the city went to Wisconsin DOT, that they would try to make a decision as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't given the impression, the only comment that DOT made about speed is that, you know, some people follow it, and some people don't. And
Right.
so speed itself is only one element of the consideration, not the entire element, so.
No, but I think if we
But that-
package it,
Yeah, but that's the way, when I first approached them was on
Yes.
speed limits, but then they started bringing in other elements, you know, such as the sequence of timing on the lights and so forth. So there's other ways that measures that might contribute to reducing the QE that goes as far back as it does, but.
right, right.
I have more concern for the 2 lanes, or 4 lanes, actually, crossing 2 lanes. The east lane, you might have somebody stop for you. And the westernmost northbound lane, they don't realize and they keep going.
Well, is there any other options? I'm looking at the sight line, if we were to move the exit or the entrance down on the other side of the Northwestern Mutual Building, closer to the, would be the south end, would that be an option? I'm just looking at the plans. I mean, it frees you back from that stoplight, significant amount of distance, it looks like, based on the plan here.
The length of the parking lot is such, it's about 100 yards long on our site. So to bring those people through Mike's site might not be too advantageous to Mike.
I'm talking about an exit, not necessarily an entrance. Where if that was an in only, you know, or a Again, if the issue is trying to get him to be able to make a left-hand turn towards Minnesota, if we were to go to the other end, and I know that's not it wouldn't be your property, it would be Mike's. We give another 100 yards of availability with, again, I still think there's some of those issues, but it would be somewhat of a, probably easier to make that turn there than at that particular, do you know the distance between that entrance and the end of the property line? I can't,
Probably close to 500 feet.
okay. Would give you a lot more room, but again, that's,
I think that'd be a state issue though, on another curb cut from the state.
okay.
I know we talked to anyone earlier,
Well,
my understanding was that the state wasn't interested in another
Okay.
curb cut onto the highway.
Well, yeah, the conversation was if there was an additional driveway, one, would they permit an additional driveway beyond what's already existing, or would they allow us, and they really didn't commit one way or the other. But I kind of got the impression they may not allow an additional driveway, that if you ask for a change in location, they may take the other one away, was what they led me, at least
Okay.
kind of gave the impression that might be what their decision might be, so
How do you find out a concrete answer to that?
we'd have to make a formal request.
Okay.
Our design has been such that, we've had help from the city with the design and to pull the buildings close to Main Street to basically set up the beginning of the city of Hudson at the south end of our building. So we're filling the 100 yards. I mean, the building is 100 yards long, pulled up to Main Street. So it's 300 feet of building that looks like old Main Street. So to have a speed limit of 45 miles an hour there seems ridiculous to me. I mean, you're booking by fast. We're pulled up to the property line, and when they do provide that right turn lane, that car is going to be closer to our building, similar to Main Street, Hudson. So the real issue would be looking at the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit change to say the beginning of Hudson is right at the south end of our building. Otherwise, we would have just put the buildings in the back and provided the parking out in the front. So by pulling that out, it extends Main Street. Ultimately, it would be great to go all the way to the south, right to 94 with Main Street. So,
So are you willing to wait to see how long the DNR,
no,
or the DOT? Okay.
we started this, Mayor, back in August. So we're there, and we need to know. There's a ton of utilities on the site, a lot more than what we anticipated. There's a major gas line that's on that Second Street that needs to be relocated. Xcel Energy needs about 8 weeks to get that, for us to release them to go. 8 weeks of time. So we basically have run out of time.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have, and I know Hudson has grown and changed a lot, but do we know what the traffic patterns were when the bank was there? You know, with that drive-through and all that? And I know that was years ago, and Hudson has grown, which is great, but I mean, do we have any knowledge of that, of what the traffic was like
All right,
then?
I couldn't tell you, as far as volumes, no,
Okay,
or peak hour.
right, right,
Yeah, so bank had it in 2006, so.
so quite a while.
Can I respond to two concerns raised? Do you mind?
Sure.
Appreciate I mean, obviously, the concern that, number one, signs, or I guess number one was the duration may not be sufficient. And I will say that the group is open to a expanded duration if the planning commission would consider this as a signage-only restriction. If 3:30 to 6 would please the commission, I believe I'm getting nods that would be sufficient for the gentleman trying to develop the premises as well as my client. In terms of signage being ineffective or not as effective as a median. I'm not going to say I disagree, although one area I'll point to that if the Target parking lot has this similar left or no left turn out. And if you've ever been there, you will, and it's enforced by a median, and it's I guess an absolute left turn restriction. People take lefts out of there all the time. And in fact, what they do is they nose out just a little bit, and then they wait to see if anybody's coming, and they dart to the left. So I think you're always going to have people that are going to fail to abide by the law, although I think if you look at the real potential safety concern, given that it is so finite and so really focused in terms of duration of time of day, I think the restriction via signage is an appropriate measure.
I mean, if you read traffic manuals, you know, even a channelized right, somebody can leave going opposite direction where they're coming in. So you don't eliminate it, you just hope you minimize. The second option, as far as in the illegal, is making a right, driving shortly up a distance of 2nd Street and making a quick U-turn. So there, I mean, those are explained in driving manuals. There's no perfect system here that you're gonna have. There's, you know, you're not gonna be able to get every turn. But what you're trying to achieve is trying to reduce the number, you know, certainly, but Ryan's correct. There are people that are going to make that illegal left turn or make a right turn and make a quick U-turn. So I mean, there's times that those types of maneuvers will happen. I think there's no denying that. So,
Well, I think we have the way to cure this if we had a couple answers. Another one, and been brought up by both sides here, speed limit, and maybe another curb cut. If we had answers to that, I think we could all shake hands and walk out of here. But I think until we know that, from what we know today, I don't know how it can be much different.
I thought we had the answer on the curb cut, though, that if we,
Well, not for
no,
sure.
it wasn't 100%,
Okay.
no.
The other factor is the third lane too. I mean, a lot of the traffic that's stacking up is waiting to turn right at Cody. And that, I mean, land was saved in the, basically the road vacation for that third lane to come back.
Right.
So a lot of that stacked traffic is just waiting to make that right turn. When that third lane pulls back, that's traffic that's stacked up.
And that'll pull the traffic ahead, which should open up that intersection
So
some.
really, combination of speed limit being reduced, a third lane, potentially, you know, another solution was potentially opening up the light, just a longer green heading into town. And, I know that was done when Stillwater Bridge was under construction, and that eased a lot of the traffic too. So I think the combination of Stillwater Bridge opening up, the third lane, and the speed limit, we feel confident that it's solved.
so how long do you think realistically it would take to get a response from,
I can't answer that
right?
question.
I mean, months, weeks, we don't know.
I-
So we approved this at our last meeting, we recommended council the way it is. So if this doesn't happen, you guys are gonna take your ball and go home, or what are you gonna do?
What is the restriction right now? There's no left turn.
Yeah, no left turn on the exit. If you're going south, you can turn left into the site, but leaving the site, you can only turn right.
So you can't turn back to before.
Yeah, I can understand your concern, Mike, but at the same time, we have the concern of making sure everybody's safe on that road. You know, period. And if we're not doing our job, then we shouldn't even be sitting here. Love the concept, want the restaurant, great project for you. We have to continue to look out for the safety of everybody that's using that road. And if it's an inconvenience for your client or your employees, to me, so be it. But we've given an approval for you guys to move on with your buildings. You know, there's nothing that says you can't. if you agree with what we have right now in place, which we've already approved. So I'm trying to grasp why the fight.
Appreciate the comments. No fighting going on here. I hope that the way I'm presenting this is not adversarial. I do that all day long, and I.
Lack of a better term.
Okay, well, I say that sincerely because I want to make sure that my tone is clear. This is one of cooperation and one of trying to work together, not saying there's not a potential issue here. So to answer your question directly, Mr. Moore said, I can't say if we don't get this today, if the project goes forward. I don't know, it may not. And the reason why I can't say that is because I don't speak for the Haflers, and Mr. Leverty has a business partner. And so when that impacts, two businesses that are currently occupy the premises, plus at least two businesses, you mentioned five, but a number of businesses are going to be impacted by this. There are a lot of people that have to have a say in this. So there is certainly the potential this deal falls apart completely. That's not your problem. And that's why I didn't start with that and even mention it, because I've been through enough of these planning commission meetings and council meetings. If I come in here and pound my fist, come in here and tell you that things aren't going to happen, it doesn't work. I've never taken that approach. What I was here to do is to respectfully suggest that I think there is a least restrictive alternative that still accomplishes the goal that you brought up, which first and foremost is protecting not just the people that are patronizing these businesses, but the people that are just driving up on the road. So loud and clear on that concern. And again, I would just submit that I think that a signage restriction more than adequately addresses this limited issue.
Can I ask a question, please? If, knowing what's been thrown on the table here tonight, is it a possibility that, we stay with what we previously recommended, but with the door open to come back and revisit this thing once we hear some information from the state or something on speed limits, on curb cuts, on some of this thing, to come back and alter this thing? If we get information that says, yes, that can be done, or whatever can be done. But again, make it a temporary approval with revisiting it at some future date when we have more information. Is that a possibility, or am I just out in left field with that comment?
It's a possibility, right. I guess it'd be setting that time period when,
Well, that's,
and what information you'd want to base the reevaluation.
well, curb cut and speed limit, I think, has been what we need to know, if you said it, and I agree with you, you're introducing the city of Hudson another 100 yards south of town from what it currently is. There should be no reason that the speed limit in that area then shouldn't be the same as it is in the rest of the central business district, or 25 miles an hour. It isn't that today. So asking the state, do you agree with this, or can we do something about it, or however you would say it. And then number two, to have, if it is a potential option, to put in a curb cut and then have another access or way to exit the property from another curb cut somewhere. Make this a temporary approval with the idea that once we have this other information, we could maybe come look at it again. I don't know, I'm trying to be accommodating here, but also accomplish the same thing that I think we all want to do here. Make it work, make it right.
The additional curb cut, I like the idea, but it's probably a pretty big thing to tackle. I think we'd want to hear from them if they're even interested before we ask Denny to go to DOT.
No, you're right,
You're
right. It's the options presented before us.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure about the curb cut, but I believe we asked to have the speed limit reduced already.
Well, I discussed it with them, but there's not a formal request in.
So would we go for 25 miles an hour? Is that?
That'd be my suggestion. I mean, the thing that Ryan and Mike brought up is bring downtown Hudson farther south. I did discuss that with the DOT. I mean, they just weren't willing that night because it was a staff discussion. It wasn't a formal request. It was an evaluation by them, and if we make a formal request, I think they'd try to move as quickly as possible on it. But we talked about the difference of speeds. in the two lanes, the left turns. All these things that we talked about tonight, we talked about at the staff level with the DOT, so.
Fred, are you suggesting that we change this to a signage like they're requesting on the condition we get a speed limit lowered? Put the request in?
I'm saying that we don't change this, but we leave it open to further review if we can get a speed limit reduction and/or some answer on a secondary access, again, from you guys too, of course, whether that's even a feasible option. I mean, I don't see why we should change anything unless we know some changes are coming that would really accommodate your request. You know, left-hand, in 25 miles an hour, when people aren't coming around a corner at 45, they have limited sight distance. You know, if cars are stacked and somebody's trying to turn left going south, trying to cross two lanes in there is just, that's tough right now. But going 25, that changes the game dramatically. And so I could see us living with signage if speed limits were different. I could see us living with signage if there was potentially another exit or entrance. I mean, both those, they're separate items, but each one does something for that intersection. Maybe creates a second intersection, I don't know, but it does address that. With the speed limit at 45, with 4 lanes potentially there, I think we've offered, probably as best as we can do right now, but again, not saying that, hey, the door swings both ways and it can be left open to change it at some point. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say, is I don't think this is cast in stone. But there has to be a reason to change.
So currently,
Any other
what's
thoughts?
on the table is that this is no left turn.
Yep.
And how do we control that? Or how do you guys want us to control that on our property?
Well, I'm looking at the prints that I saw that we received that show a median there.
Median, to me, is scary.
I don't know.
Because you can't control somebody not turning left.
I agree.
And they snout out. And now we've actually created a bad condition with the median, because people will turn. We went up to Target, we saw it.
Well, they're actually exiting out the entrance lane then, at that point. Yeah, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, so they snout out to get around that.
Under that theory, though, we shouldn't allow anybody in there. That, I don't, that doesn't
We,
hold
we
water.
can't control everything, but we can try. We can't just not do it because, well, it's not gonna work anyway.
The reason for the median was to hopefully address the people, myself included, that sometimes look at a sign and say, oh, I can do this. And so the median was only meant to be a deterrent to make it really hard to take a left-hand turn. Now, could somebody still do it? Well, of course they could, but it's meant to be a deterrent. Not to implore or make entrance or exiting your property impossible. I mean, it's not put there for that reason at all. I mean, I hope it's not looked that way at all. That's not the intent.
Very, very candidly, I mean, my job here today is to try to come here and improve the situation for my client, the seller, such that the deal does stay together. And I realize that's not your problem, but I'm just telling you what I'm here to do. And so perhaps, as Mr. Morissette mentioned, I don't know if this would do it, but if it was approved as we requested, but contingent upon it being, the speed limit being reduced to 25, that may be enough. I can't say for certain, but of course, Mr. Hafler may speak to this, but it may be enough to hopefully keep the deal going forward as a potential solution. Do you want to speak to it?
We can look at it. I can't guarantee it. I know it's gonna be a problem, but this is what it is. The median thing scares me because I've actually done it.
Yeah,
And
there's
I
no
drive
concern
big
for people
suburban,
coming in
yeah.
the wrong way. So if you guys, somebody come from Minnesota, they're gonna turn that right turn lane, where you got a car coming out thinking they can go left there. My concern is I think it's more of a risk to have that median there for our customers and clients than it's controlled signage. I mean, it's no different, like Mary Claire said, you have a no turn on red, I mean, people follow that. So our view is the median is more of a risk and hazard for the site than it protects.
I don't know the answer to that. You might be right, but I don't know the answer to that.
So how else, I guess, how else would it be enforced? Is there any other options? So working on solutions on trying to make it work with signage, other than immediate signage, I guess in town, how else are left turns restricted?
Well, I think one of the ways then, if you want, we all can speculate to say, yeah, that never works, or this is more restrictive. We can have you can have a traffic engineer come and tell us why this is a good way to do it, or because I don't think I'm qualified to say this doesn't work or this does work. I think our concern, or what I heard from everyone, was that we're very concerned about a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit and somebody trying to go across 4 lanes of traffic. And we don't want anybody to get killed there. And that's our concern. That's what we're trying to accomplish. And without, I mean, I can say I think that's dangerous, and it may not be. But I don't think, at least I'm not qualified to say this is more dangerous than another area. I think there's a certain amount of intuitiveness about all of us that have watched that particular intersection or seen that, but you know, it's a lot easier for me to go with if it was a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit than 45. So I guess if you guys can come to us with a traffic engineer that does a study of that particular site, it's a very, I would guess, expensive proposition and a time-consuming one, because before they would issue that, I think they'd want to do all the studies on that and the traffic and the timing and when it happens. So, and I think that would be a pretty convincing argument then. So that is an option. Not a very good one, I don't think. I mean, from a timing element.
Well, again, back to what I said earlier, can you live with our current approval and we get some answers from the state or something on speed limit and some other things? So if it needed to be changed, we come back here, whether it be next March or next December or whenever it is, and say, okay, now we got the information, what do we do here?
The problem that I have with that is I can't guarantee it to my tenants on building number 2. So they're.
Well,
That's my problem.
we don't have some answers, though, that's our
No,
problem.
I understand. We just.
I know what you're saying, and I mean, we hate the position we're in, but I think that's the position we're in.
Anybody else have any comments, thoughts? Yes, Frank?
I just agree with the 25 mile an hour, it's not, I don't think an issue, and I think that the signage would be a lot easier to accommodate. 45 miles an hour, that's pretty difficult to change kind of what we're already at. Although I understand the inconvenience at this point.
I'm not following you. I'm sorry,
No, I say, I think that the 45, the issue I have, the same as has been mentioned, is the 45 mile an hour.
Okay.
With 4 lanes. I agree with what Fred said. I mean, revisiting it at 25 is a whole different story. But until then, I don't know what the option would be.
and the option that Mr. Carey proposed was a signage, no left turn, or only during specific times. And that doesn't,
We discussed that last time.
Yep.
And I think in the meeting, we ended up with, where we came away with approval with right turn only.
okay? Any- Mary Claire?
And I'm just asking protocol. So this is not the city to have an engineer review the traffic study. That's up to the developer to do, even though it's,
Well, we could do it, but, you know, somebody'd have to authorize expenses, you know, so we do it and we charge it back, or we just advise them to do it and they can bring their findings to us.
For what it's worth, just to clarify, I don't think it is a realistic option, but in case we do talk about it afterwards, what is it that you're looking for from a traffic study standpoint? I mean,
We get a professional traffic engineer taking a look at, you know, where that exit should be restricted or not.
whether it should be restricted or not,
Correct.
and if so, what means? Is that a fair statement?
And give an opinion on how it's best to, if the restriction's warranted, how best it should be done,
Fair enough.
implemented.
Fair enough.
For good access and good ability to leave the property.
Okay.
No, we want, if we don't go ahead with this, I don't want to be one that caused Mike issues, or especially Dairy Queen as well, because they've got the same condition down there. Is that going to generate a red flag for those guys, would be my concern. They're already there. So if they're grandfathered in, is that fine? I don't want, if we pull out of this thing, I want to make sure that they're not affected. Dairy Queen's right there. I mean, the other thought I had was if you go right out, I know what they're gonna do, they're gonna go up Dairy Queen, whip through their lot and then come back down. That's a concern. We think of all these different things that could happen. And, restricting it, I'm down there a lot. We're doing a lot of site work down there, and, through engineers, and I never have a problem taking a left out. I haven't been down there from 4 to 6. If that is an issue, we're there for it. I mean, we would do that. We don't want to create an issue either. But if you're there at 8, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning, and you're looking, there's not a car to be seen.
I don't think the argument's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. And we've been pretty clear at the issues from about 4:15 to 6:30 in that general range. That's been the focus of the conversation.
We agree with you on the other part of it. You're right. The rest of the time, there's nothing.
So what would be wrong with setting a time limit between X and X, 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock? If you agree with the fact that it's not really a problem until those peak hours of the day.
Well, that only addresses part of it. The speed is still the issue.
Yeah.
And the 4 lanes.
Yeah.
We're all in agreement on speed, but
Yes.
would the state change speed limit if development wasn't there? I mean,
They should. It's part entrance to the city. It's part of the downtown business district. I mean, that's the part that I think doesn't make sense is if the city has moved south by another block or 2, you extend the prevailing speed limit in the city to the start of the city, which is your properties. So that,
Yeah, and we're all in agreement with looking at speed limit change. I think our concern is just it's out of our control. I mean, we need to make a formal appeal to the state. We're optimistic it will get changed, but really from our standpoint, I mean, this has been a project that worked since August, and everybody's been on time.
I know.
I mean, the first, I think, submittal was in August to the planning commission.
I know.
Everybody's on time.
Are we gonna proceed anyway with the 25 mile an hour?
Yes.
So do we need a
I
motion?
would. I mean,
Do we need
my
a,
advice to the city is yes.
Right.
do we need a motion to that effect? Or can you just go ahead and make that request?
No, the city can make that request.
Okay.
So are you saying the city is gonna request the state to change that
I've
speed
talked to the
limit?
mayor about it, but yes, and I think the answer is yes.
So just to clarify then, so we're saying that we are sticking with the original motion that we approved at the last meeting, and we're not wavering on the recommendation of looking at signage versus median. Is that what I hear?
I haven't heard anything
No motion
different.
on the floor,
Yeah,
so.
there hasn't been anything different. If you,
I think what Fred had said earlier makes sense then, is, I mean, we know where we're at, what we already approved. Understand the difficulty. If we get it moved to 25 mile an hour, then I am not against signage with a left turn.
Nor am I.
Me neither.
Nor am I. If you say 25 miles an hour, you two, is just a question of time, that we ask the state and we get granted that changes everything we're talking about here too. And so I guess that's kind of an important question at this point. I mean, yes, we're gonna ask for it. What does that mean, or what don't I know here, or is that in any, is that a reason then we can say, okay, we'll be getting that at some point in time, and you can confidently go ahead and change this knowing that that's gonna happen? We don't know when, but it's gonna happen. Or what's
I
the
think
answer to
I think
that?
what's necessary is to modify your recommendation to be the same with the understanding that a reevaluation will be made if the traffic speed can be modified to 25 miles an hour.
I'm okay with that.
And I'll second that.
More discussion on that? Any more discussion or comments?
Just a point of clarification, so does that mean we're willing to remove the median and put up signage instead?
If the traffic is slowed to 25.
If the traffic is slowed to
I
25?
thought the motion was more to reevaluate.
That's what it was.
Okay. Then that
Because
was
we already
wrong.
have a motion, we already have approval on a right turn only. So I guess what we're saying is we will evaluate, right? We're not changing that motion.
No.
Can we
You made the
amend?
motion. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment to your motion.
You what?
Would like to make a friendly amendment to your motion,
I'd like to hear it, please.
that we consider the removal of the median and put in the restrictive signage that talks about the hours that you can go left out.
I think that's what we said.
I thought that was understood.
That was what I
but yeah,
said, is that
put the
we already
wordage,
have a motion, we will that we would, we already have a motion and approval from before that we're not against. Are we saying where they're gonna have to bring it back?
You make it
No, I
contingent.
think they've got to bring it back and it'd be reevaluated.
Right, okay.
Would they make it contingent on the state changing it to 25?
You guys do
Correct.
whatever you want.
My understanding was that if, your motion, and you made it so you can clarify, but if it gets changed to 25, it will come back to us.
Correct. That's my
for-
understanding.
For further discussion.
That's correct.
and potential removing of the, need for the median, with potential consideration for signage rather than the median. I took your motion as that was understood, and that was part of your motion, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that's why I approved it, because that's how I understood it.
So it'll come back.
Okay.
Any other discussion or comments on that? Thoughts? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Anything else?
This March meetings will be March 10th and March 31st. Again, there will only be one meeting in April. So that March 31st meeting will kind of serve as second meeting in March, first meeting in April.
So it's what day?
March 10th and March 31st. And I think it's April 21st for the,
Okay, if there's anything else, if not, motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.